Warning, due to some language and subject matter, listener discretion is advised.
The warrior instinct comes in. The heart, determination, the will to win. Even though you're rocked, you still have to fight hard to come back. This quote by Timothy Bradley, in short, sums up a lot of my next guest's testimony that they give at the start of this episode. I am very proud to welcome Arut Primetime Pogosjan to the show. He fights for the lightweight division in PFL and is a member of Team Elevation. Strong in the values of his Armenian heritage, he has a great take on what it means to be a fighter, video game competitions, and even Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. It's not any time. It is prime time. How cheesy was that?
Like that. No, it's great. Not cheesy at all.
I'm talking with my friend Arut Primetime Pogosjan. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Getting back to training. It's always exciting for me to rebuild after a loss, like rearranging my schedule and getting everything. I hate losing, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to come off like I'm upset. I haven't lost in years, and that feeling sucks. But it drives me like it's a different kind of fire. I'm always fired up to be the best that I can be. But after a loss, there's even more to prove.
Yeah.
So you go back to the drawing board. You take a look at your schedule. You take a look at what you can improve. And honestly, I've been doing a pretty good job, I feel like, with arranging my schedule and all of that stuff. So there's like not going to be big changes, but a couple of small changes that are going to make a big difference. Like it's when you have a ship on course and you move it 1 degree or 2 degrees, and then like in an hour, it's like way different trajectory, right? Same thing with this. So I'm excited for, to make these small changes. They're going to make the big difference.
I was going to ask you about that, about how do you press the reset button after something like that? Because some people, it's a certain level of mental tenacity where one loss can totally destroy a person, but another person might look at it as, today's a new day. This is a fresh start. This is my reset button. Like, I was just going to ask you that question.
Well, yeah, for me, I'm not gonna lie, it's depressing. Like for about a month or so, I was pretty depressed. I like to be stalked. I don't like to show my feelings to other people, but like inside, I know what I'm feeling, and it's not good. I don't like, I was just eating my feelings away. Honestly, just trying to get joy out of food is pretty much. But at the same time, I know that feeling is temporary. I know that feeling is necessary it's like the fire that burns the phoenix so it can rise from the ashes, right? So I know I have to go through that process of the downward so that I can rise again. The harder the fall, the sweeter the rise.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key for me. Is like I always remember that. Yeah, I'm feeling depressed right now, but I'm not my feelings. Like this will pass. And what can I do about it? I could sit here and cry about it, or I could do something about it. Like take the input from my coaches. I could take the input from the commentators, Randy Couture, Kenny Florian. They gave great input watching the fight. So, and it's exciting to apply the input that my coaches and these great commentators give to make me the better fighter. Like it's fight long enough, you're gonna lose. It's just we're all human. Nothing's gonna be perfect. So it's about how you come back from that, and it's about being the best that you can be. It's about not making the same mistakes again.
Without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience, and let's kind of talk your backstory a little bit on how you got into fighting and what landed you in Colorado.
Well, I think my father got me into fighting when I was a kid. Instead of like, I remember my earliest memories is I was 5 years old. Instead of Disney movies, my dad would bring Jean-Claude Van Damme movies on VHS, Kickboxer. I would just play it on repeat over and over again. Like all day long, that movie was playing. And I would have nightmares about Tom Poe. And, my dad told me as a kid, like, you don't have to worry about anything. I could beat up anybody in the world. Like, I'm the strongest. That's my dad would tell me that. I believed him. But when it came to Tom Poe, I was like, man, I don't know if he could take Tom Poe. Tom Poe and the Terminator, those two, like, so I think I grew up watching, like violent movies. I wouldn't call them violent, but, action movies. And I was naturally drawn to that. And I was, I think my temperament was like that to begin with, and in Armenian culture, fighting is probably the most important sport. There's not too many Armenians out there. There's probably like 3 million in Armenia and 2 or 3 more million scattered throughout the world. And out of, let's say, combined 5 or 6 million, we have countless world champions in kickboxing, boxing, MMA, judo, all the combat sports. And combat sports, wrestling, weightlifting, that's it. It's kind of like what we're built for. So I was naturally drawn to that. And, my dad took me to Taekwondo when I was 5, but they called it Taekwondo, but it was kickboxing because I remember they gave us boxing gloves, not even shin guards. And we just went at it. I remember I had a really good friend. His name was Radik. And, as a kid, 5, 6 years old, yeah, I liked fighting, but I didn't, I would hit my friend and he would cry. And I remember feeling bad. And then he would hit me and I didn't like the pain either. What kid likes pain? Like it's not. And then I remember telling my dad, I was like, he was watching our practice and I'm like, I don't want to hit him. And I don't like it when I get hit. And he just looked at me. He's like, what do you mean? Like, this is what you want to do. This is what you're doing. And I felt embarrassed for him to say that. And we went back at it with tears in our eyes. We were just hitting each other. But looking back at it, to somebody, it might, especially today, feel like we live in a snowflake generation. But,
right.
It might seem like a traumatizing experience for somebody. But I think that those type of experiences is character building, like it's very analogous to life. Life sometimes hits you and it sucks, it's painful, and what are you gonna do? Sit there and cry about it? No, you can cry about it, but you gotta do something about it.
Right.
And that was the message that he relayed to me early on. You
can draw a parallel to your dad. I have a son that's in Taekwondo. Actually, my son and my daughter, 13-year-old. He's a big kid. And he always is intimidated by kids that are smaller than him, or when he fights a girl. And I'm like, dude, they're doing the same thing that you're doing. He wants to be such a gentleman. And it's just like, Don't worry about it. You guys are doing the same thing. It's kill or be killed, man.
Kill or be killed. Tough spot for your son, though. You kick their ass, but that's expected. And then if they even do remotely good against you, that just makes you look bad. So it's a lose situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he knows that. He's got the cognitive spirit where he kind of gets that. Where my daughter, she's 15 and she's tall and lanky. So I'm always like, just output, because she's got long arms and long feet, so she can maintain distance. I'm like, you're going to get your points that way. But she's like, Dad, I could care less about this shit.
Yeah, makes sense. Most girls don't care about it. Right. There's some, though. Yeah, I've seen some like born fighters, like they're girls. It's rare, but it happens. Usually their temperament's not like that.
Right, absolutely. So how'd you land in Denver?
I have a cousin who lived here, and we visited, and we loved it here. And then I found out about Team Elevation out here, and one thing led to another, and we just made the move here. I was living in New York before that, but I was, I didn't really like living in New York. I lived in upstate New York for about 10 years, and I lived in Queens and Jersey City for another year or so. It was like New York City is cooler, like there's a lot of energy, and it's really cool. I have a lot of great memories at Henzo's. And I have great memories in upstate New York too, but I knew that, there's better fitting places for me out there, like climate wise and training wise. So I was thinking of where can I move that would be a better fit for me. So my choices were LA, Denver, and Florida. And, we decided that Denver was the best spot, climate wise and elevation wise. It's a huge advantage having elevation on your side. So there's a reason Olympic Training Center is here. So that's how we made the move. And then I joined Team Elevation, and I've been with them it's been 8 years now, over 8 years.
Fantastic. So did you train up in upstate New York?
Yeah. Back when I started, there was the amateur scene in MMA was non-existent. Well, the MMA scene in upstate New York was non-existent. There was kind of guys training some jiu-jitsu, guys training some striking, and kind of putting it together, fighting outside of New York in Massachusetts and Jersey, states nearby. And for a while, like honestly, it was like a handful of us, just fighters in upstate New York, at least, not downstate. Downstate, there's more, of course. But and me and my buddy Roger, we were Matt Hamill's main training partners for like the longest time. We helped him get ready for so many fights, and it was bizarre because he had like 50 pounds on me, and I'd have to give myself pep talks before sparring him. But like I didn't want to admit to myself even that how scared I was, considering he broke my ribs in his sparring sessions. Like he was big and he had one speed,
Right.
But I didn't want to admit that I was scared, and I didn't want to admit to myself and to others, and I wanted to prove to myself that it didn't matter. So for years, we were his main training partners.
What do you think is involved with the structure that makes Team Elevation successful in churning out such high-level fighters such as yourself and some of the other guys on the team and girls?
Yeah, I think number one, probably the culture. Cody, and Christian, and all the great coaches we have set a culture of growth. It's about growth. And that made to become 1% better each day. And then I think there's besides growth, there's a cerebral approach to it too. Like, I've trained a lot of places, and I think we put it together better than most, like we really bring all the arts together into mixed martial art. And, that attracts a lot of talent. There's so many talented guys on the team. Can't really find an easy round.
Right.
And there's a plethora of coaches too, So there's been some changes happening now and a couple of transitions happening, but overall we have a lot of great athletes coming together, working as a unit to create the product that is Team Elevation.
It's an iron sharpens iron environment from what I can see from afar. And I talk to a lot of the fighters on a regular basis, and I've talked to Cody and I've talked to Vinny. I'm never short of impressed when I talk to any of you guys. It's always very enlightening. And that's one of my favorite part of having you and your teammates and your coaches on the show is there's a certain moral characteristics that you all share, kind of like these core values of integrity and respect that I absolutely love, that goes beyond the fighting world.
I appreciate that. I kind of sense that too, and I think that coaches lead by example, and it just kind of, it's not like anybody's out there teaching us these things. It just
Right.
kind of, the energy, the vibe is there like that. So that's the vibe we have. And then the bad apples, I guess, maybe get weeded out eventually. I mean, no place, no team, no organization is perfect. There's always imperfections out there, but overall, I think you're right. There is this core values that integrity, core integrity, and most of the team that I see too.
Yeah. So your last fight was part of the PFL Challenger Series, right?
Right.
So are you currently under contract with any specific organization, or are you pursuing a contract?
Under contract with PFL. So, but the details are kind of unclear still, like what's next with them. But I did sign a 1 to 3 year contract with them, and how that plays out is still kind of a little bit up in the air. But I really love fighting for them, despite the loss. And that is an organization that would like to make my home. And this was a setback and everything, but my goal hasn't changed. I want to win that $1 million tournament. I know I'm capable of winning that $1 million tournament. It's just a bump in the road. It happens. And hopefully we get some fight news in the near future. I'll be ready to fight in about 3 months. Yeah, I have a little labrum care, nursing a little injury right now, but nothing serious. 3 months, I'll be ready to address the mistakes I've made and show a upgraded version of myself.
So what do you do in your downtime when you're not training for a fight or you're not actively pursuing? What are some of your interests outside of the octagon?
I like to listen to audiobooks, but that's not during downtime. That's like when I'm cooking or something. I love listening to audiobooks, and I'm not the only one. I think a lot of fighters do that, or podcasts, and just constantly trying to be the best that we can be. I like hiking, of course, in Colorado.
Right.
Paddle boarding is a hobby of mine. I just got done kicking ass in chess right now. Me and my roommate Caleb, we just go to war in chess, and we talk so much shit while we play.
That's awesome.
And it's the most satisfying feeling beating him. And besides that, I play UFC. And we live, breathe fighting. If I showed you my house right now, as soon as you enter, it's a gym. Like it's a whole matted area. The walls are matted, floor is matted. When the pandemic hit, we built it so that we can train, because the gyms were like closed open. It was a disaster. So, and we have an outside training area too for strength conditioning, bag work, all of that. So, like, God forbid there was another pandemic, this house, we call it Champ House. We live, breathe fighting.
That's awesome.
When we're not fighting, we're fighting.
That's great. So you get on the Xbox or PS5 and you fire up the UFC 4. I'm assuming you're playing in Kumite mode just because of the Jean-Claude Van Damme fandom.
We have Kumite a lot, but the T-Mobile is my favorite. That T-Mobile is my favorite. It's so bizarre. Like I think about it. I've done a bunch of training camps with Alistair. We lived together, and he hated it. Like the UFC game, he never played it. But like he's like, man, I'm training. I don't want to think of UFC outside of training. And I've met a lot of guys like that. They don't play it. But with us, we don't get tired of it. And I'm like, there's got to be a point where you get sick of it. But we don't get sick of it. Like like a kid, I get joy out of kicking ass, and whether it's UFC, where it's just winning. And that's it. So that's what we do.
That's funny. Anytime I have somebody new, I'm not a gamer, but that is the only game I will play. Is UFC 3 or UFC 4?
I don't play much else either. Maybe Grand Theft Auto once in a while. But
yeah. I've got an upright Mortal Kombat arcade machine in my basement, so I play that.
Oh, nice. Nice. If I ever make it out there, we'll definitely have a battle.
Yes. Dude, that's amazing. So what's the last book that really struck you and really stuck with you?
The last one I was listening to was Andre Agassi's Open.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about tennis, like
Yeah.
It's kind of tennis. Parts of it were funny. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, it's, you guys are so dramatic. It's maybe we're fighters, we're jaded about like what toughness and all that stuff, but like when they make the analogies to tennis, to boxing and stuff like that, I'm like, you're ridiculous. But when it talks about how difficult it was, like the love and hate relationship he had with tennis, and then hating it but still doing it, but then loving it, and just all the mixed emotions you feel before competition and all those things. That transcends one sport. That is common in all sports, and I related to that.
Not a lot of people realize how cerebral of a sport tennis is, and how sharp it keeps your mental acuity. Thinking about that, and the fact that you just kill it in chess, do you find that you're more of a cerebral fighter whenever you're strategizing how a fight is going to play out or how it's happening in real time?
Chess is kind of a recent hobby, and I've always been more of an instinctual fighter than a cerebral fighter, I would say. But over the years, I think I've shifted to being a little more cerebral. Like, I catch myself being more cerebral in jiu-jitsu now, like especially when I'm rolling with people that I'm clearly better than. And I'm like, all right, I start to make the analogies of chess, I have this position and this is kind of like a checkpoint here. And these are my options. Before it wasn't like that. Like before it was I was just going, I was just doing things and having great success doing that. And, just because of physical ability and stuff. But now I'm kind of slowing things down and it is from playing chess, I think is, and the same thing with striking too. With the big analogy with chess and striking is, in chess you take over the middle of the board. I like to take over the middle of the board, and then it's like taking over the top of the hill. And same thing with cage. You take over the center of the cage, and it's a tactical decision, right? Where you put yourself, and then you're fighting from uphill.
Right.
So there's many analogies like that translate from chess to fighting to grappling. I think overall it makes you one helps the other, and it's the shifts in momentum are interesting too. Like you lose a queen or something, but it's not over till it's over. How do you, if you sit there and dwell on losing a piece, right? Or in fighting, it'd be like if you get rocked or something, right? And you sit there and you dwell on that, it's gonna be a short night for you. But if you move on right away and you're like, okay, what do I got to do to win this moment right now? Like, forget what just happened. How do I deal with this right now? And then not getting sucked into the momentum, all the emotions that come with ups and downs of a competition. I think it's cool, and it translates.
Yeah, absolutely it does. So I ask this question frequently of a lot of the guests on my show because it's no secret how podcasting has taken off post-pandemic world, but fighting is really blown up. It's one sport that just kept going when the rest of the world shut down, and gyms shut down, but people were still training. There were, UFC was still having events. I think PFL did have their $1 million tournament in 2020. Bellator was running. What's your advice in a post-pandemic world with everything that's going on? What's your advice for making the world a better place right now?
I never thought I'd be asked that question. I'm like the furthest person you want to ask how to make the world a better place. But in relation to post-pandemic, man, live your life. I think, there's going to be, I think my biggest frustration with the pandemic was the mass hysteria and like how everything got put on hold, and people just became lazy, and it was not good. So I think the fact that the fighting sports continue to go on represents the fighting spirit. You know, I think life is going to throw circumstances at you that are shitty, and you know, you could always the easy route, the easy choice is always going to be there to roll over and die or whatever, or, you know, kind of just cry about it. But the best thing you could do is take action. You know, whatever circumstance you're in, never perfect, right? Like, you know, moving to America was a very difficult experience for me. You know, we were undocumented for 10 years, and you know, living in Europe, we had a very good life, and then coming to America, you know, being undocumented, I see my father work 16-hour days, 18-hour days, and running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and just one foot in front of the other. We're living in the ghetto, you know, and getting those jobs, even that was difficult for him. So I saw a prime example of what no excuse mentality is, you know, like, and so to me, life is never going to be perfect. There's always going to be shitty circumstances, and you just got to do the best you can with what you have there. And sitting there and crying about it, not helpful, you know. I mean, maybe you could cry about it as long as you're taking action, but if you're not taking action and crying about it, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Right. I ask that question of fighters on purpose because you have a very tactical mindset, just as a fighter in general. You have a very tactical mindset. You know what your mission is. You know what the end result that you want to be is. So whenever you're kind of thrown into a complex situation like that, you know, and thrown an oddball question like that on top of it, it really makes you think. And what you're describing in a lot of ways is the fighter's journey. It's something. Now, this isn't a MMA podcast, so to speak. I cover everything on my show, but I focus on a lot of fighters above any other athletes out there for that reason. Like, the fighter's journey is the most interesting, and the mindset that you guys have is always inspiring.
Yeah, it's the eyes on the prize mindset, right? Like the mission. What is my mission? You know, it's let's keep it simple and let's accomplish the mission. And I think, you know, whether you're fighting, whether you're in school, whether you're providing for your family, I think it's all universal. Like, you got to have a mission and accomplish your mission, you know, or come as close that you could possibly can come to accomplishing your mission. You know, it's and like, to me, that, like, I've thought about, people have asked me, like, what is the meaning of life? And I've thought about this question for a long time, and I think the meaning is to be the best that you can be. And to be the best that you can be means to accomplish as many of your goals as possible, you know? So, you know, and if you give it your all, you can live with any outcome, knowing that you're giving it your all, but only you know if you're giving it your all. The mirror doesn't lie. When you look in the mirror, you'll know when you've given your all, and you know when you haven't, you know? So,
right.
So to sleep easy at night, you got to give it your all.
So one book I got to ask if you've ever listened to, because I'm hearing bits and pieces of it. Have you ever listened to David Goggins' book? Can't Hurt Me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the mirror analogy. Huh?
Yes, the accountability mirror. I heard it right there. I'm like, I know that one. I've listened to that 4 times.
I've listened to it a couple of times myself. That book got me through some fights. I'll tell you what, like, that book, he's crazy. That David Goggins is crazy. You know, he says, yeah, he was born with a congenital heart disease. No, you gave yourself heart disease by pushing yourself to the brink of what you did. But that, all that being said, you know, that book really taps into the mind's potential and like getting you through what you think is impossible. You know, I think, it's a great book.
Yeah, absolutely.
I highly recommend it.
Me too.
And the only reason I said the Agassi, the open book, I have way more other books that I like way more that would be recommended books, but it was just the most recent one that came to mind. That's why I said that. But that Goggins book, man, that is the governor, right? Right. It talks about the central governor. to prevent you, like that prevents you from giving your 100.
Yeah, it's the 40% rule.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually 40% or if it's 80%, but
right.
I do think we're not reaching our full potential.
No.
And I think there are consequences to disabling the government. You know, like you're gonna be burning the candle from both ends. You know, so this should be taken with a little bit of grain of salt. You should choose where you disable the governor.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad to hear somebody else say that. So I've got this text group of buddies, and we're kind of like we're pushing each other, get out to the gym every day, get our health in check. And I'm like, listen. Yes. None of us are going to be David Goggins, so let's not talk to each other like we think we are. Because you're right, man. I have tried that lifestyle. It is not sustainable for me, and I feel like I'm a relatively ambitious guy.
Well, I'll tell you what. Like, I'm an educated guy. I have a degree in biology. I have a degree in health science. I was in PA school. I finished a didactic year, so I know quite a bit about health and the human body. I understand very well. Like one of the pillars of health is sleep. You know, and if you're gonna compromise sleep to go get a workout, if you slept 6-7 hours, you could get away with workout. You know, it's not ideal, but like working out still can have some benefit for you. But if you sleep in 5 hours and you're going to go work out, you're going to have a congenital heart disease like David Goggins. You know, that's what that leads to. So that's why I say take it with a grain of salt. And I think you understand that too.
Yes. Yes, I do.
If you slept 5 hours, maybe that day go take a walk, or go sit in the sauna or something. You know, active recovery that day. Don't go pushing it on the treadmill or whatever it is. Especially as you get older, that's how you ruin your heart. And you only get one engine. You know, like your engine is very important. Yep. So, that's my take on that.
That's awesome. Well, sir, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I hope we can run into each other in the real world.
Likewise.
I said it a couple of times. I'm planning on coming out to Colorado before too long. I think maybe later this summer. But I plan. Hopefully, I can run into all you guys and give you high fives and maybe see you in action.
Hey, that'd be awesome. When you're here, I challenge you to a UFC 4 fight off. Yeah, so. We could have a tournament at the Champ House, so you're welcome to come through. Just let me know when you're here, and we will have a full-on tournament.
Yeah, I'm down, brother. I am down. Hey, man, thank you so much for doing the podcast. The world's a better place with you in it, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
I want to once again thank Crime Time for doing the show today. Make sure you give him a follow on all forms of social media. Give a follow to Elevation Fight Team as well on all forms of social media. That was a fun chat. I tell you what, I'm gonna take him up on that offer of a UFC tournament on Xbox. And for some reason, I now have an urge to go watch Bloodsport. Make sure you give me a follow on all forms of social media. I would really appreciate it. And as always, I appreciate the 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hit me up at www.caughtonthemic.com. I look forward to talking to and interacting with you. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.